Technical difficulties aside, we are here to bring you the regular show on a different day again because, as Sunil says, he's always the bridesmaid and never the bride. That being said, we have a great show planned tonight. I'm really excited for this one. Topics are on point. They always are when I'm on with Sunil. He's a genius, this guy. The 49ers, are they front runners? Is Kyle Shanahan using his personnel properly? And what is better about this team than the 2019 49ers? We're going to talk about all of those things plus more next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And it's Wednesday night, which means I've got my guy, So Real Sunil, in the building. What's up, Sunil? How you doing?
So, we put a lot of money into pre-production. And for some reason, the backstage people couldn't get the cameras right. They couldn't get the headphones right. So, we had to just do it ourselves, basically DIY.
For sure.
I think we're gonna give the axe to these pre-production guys and just DIY.
It happens, man. It happens. Sometimes you realize that budget cuts are needed. And over at Last Second Sports, there's some guys that don't need to be around anymore. And that's totally fine. I'm sure they're great people, though. They're great people. Where are you at right now? You're traveling, obviously.
I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
Let's ride. Let's ride.
Oh, okay. You're in Denver. All right. I like it. Okay. Hey, he's looking like his old self. I'll tell you that. He's looking like his old self.
Yeah, I mean, hey, Denver just took out two of the heaviest hitters on the AFC. Got to give them respect where respect is due.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about the San Francisco 49ers. Chase Young played his first game for the San Francisco 49ers, and I got to say, it looked pretty damn good. The defense came alive. I know that Steve Wilkes was on the sideline. I'm sure it had more to do with that, but that aside, the defense certainly came to life, and the defensive line was as dominant as it's been all season. It looked fantastic. They were always around Trevor Lawrence, making things tough on him. Do you think that Chase Young can have a CMC-like impact on this team, the way that CMC brought life into the 49ers? Now, obviously, I know it's a little bit different, offense, defense, what have you, but just overall, do you think injecting him into this lineup can give them the life that they need to make this run and do a lot of the same things, maybe behind the scenes for the 49ers that CMC was able to bring upon this team?
So you kind of changed the question mid-question. So are we talking about CMC-like impact?
Let's talk about like impact. Let's go that way.
Because the CMC-like impact took an offense that struggled scoring the ball and added 11 points per game. Didn't matter who was throwing the ball to that offense. So that's a huge jump, right? They went from a team that was struggling to win games to a team that rattled off 8, 9, 10 wins straight. So I guess if it's like impact, meaning do I think the 49ers could go on a streak like they did with CMC was interjected? Yes, but I don't know if it's going to be because of Chase Young or just because of everything that is coming together. Now, that's not to say that Chase Young isn't going to make an impact. I just think that this defense in the first 5 games was lights out, right? So I think Chase Young makes it easier for this defense to be lights out because now you can't go one-on-one with anybody because somebody's going to be able to take advantage of that. But I think the bar is really, really high when you put a CMC-like impact because what he did for this offense, I don't even think any player on defense is capable of upgrading them as high as CMC was able to upgrade this offense.
Yeah, most certainly. The impact that CMC had was astronomical. I do think that the impact is going to be huge though for this defensive line. Not just because he's great, Sunil, but because you saw it immediately in game one. The depth that they now have along that defensive line allows them to get rest across the board. You're able to sub out guys like Armstead and Hargrave and Bosa, unlike they were able to do before because they didn't have that depth. Bringing in Young and Gregory, really, the two of them has pushed everybody down the depth chart and made this a lot easier. When the 49ers have been at their best, it's been because of the defensive line depth. It's been because of the rotations they've been able to make where they pull out all four starters to start a drive, and then they bring them in on a crucial third down. And Chase Young being on this team allows them to do that again. It allows them to have their identity again. So I don't know that he'll have that type of impact. I mean, this team was only giving up 17 and a half points a game. It was actually pretty good. But if we look at how worn down they were against a team like Cincinnati and then how rejuvenated they were, yes, the bye week was in there, but I do think just that overall rest will keep the most important part, the highest paid part of the team fresh throughout the season, and I think that's super important. So I think he's going to have a massive impact. I don't know that it'll be as big as CMC's because that impact was, I mean, we knew it was going to be awesome. I don't know that we thought it would be that awesome.
Right. I mean, look, CMC made the Raiders think that Jimmy G was somebody that they should throw that type of money at, and he's not even playing. He's a healthy on the bench guy, and they're playing a rookie. So CMC makes the game look easier for anybody playing quarterback. He makes the offense run. But I think you said it well. I mean, Chase Young doesn't mean he's not going to make a huge impact. He clearly is. It's just, it's like, you could say like a certain player like is good, but then when you compare them to like the greatest, it's a little too much. So I think it's more of that. But I agree with you. I think Chase Young means that there's no weaknesses on this defensive line. And, also what it does, Jesse, you talk about depth, but in case of there's, God forbid, an injury to somebody, now there's another guy in Chase Young that could be the centerpiece as well. So it just gives you a lot of weapons that, weren't there previous to that trade.
Absolutely. Johnson, this is your warning. You can say whatever you want. You can challenge a take. But the moment you start going at either somebody that is a guest of mine or somebody in the chat on a personal level, you're gone. I don't allow any of that stuff. So that's your warning. Okay. Let's talk Brother Bob here. He says, Sunil, tell us how great Kyle is with 18 All-Pros. He's always coming at you, man. He's always coming at you.
The way that he's able to put all those pieces together and attract them to this organization, it's all because of Shanahan. Hey, when were 18 All-Pros trying to come to San Francisco before Shanahan was here? Riddle me that, Brother Bob.
Fair. That's totally fair. Brother Bob says, so if a team wins the turnover battle, yet loses, that says a lot about the offense ineptness because the defense is giving the offense opportunities, right?
Okay, so I put up a tweet about that the 49ers have won every single game. They've won the turnover battle on except one, which is the Cleveland game. But Jake Moody missed the field goal. Otherwise, they would have won that game as well. Actually, in that case, Brother Bob, that's special teams, not really the offense. So once again, step your game up if you're going to come to me, bro.
Oh, that's funny. Man, he's never going to let you live it down. This is always going to be a thing. Every time we do a show.
That's okay. I stand on business.
By the way, I had a comment up from Lobs. He was asking about the call-in show. The call-in show in the season is so sporadic. Most weeks it doesn't happen because I've got a full deck. If it happens, it's because another show fell out, so it'll be random. During the off season, it is on Wednesdays. You're right. But throughout the season, it's a little sporadic. So apologize if that's what you were here for. All right. Let's talk about the 49ers and how good they looked. They've had a interesting season, to say the least. They started out 5-0, looked about as good as you could look against the Dallas Cowboys. Then they lost 3 straight, looked about as bad as they could look the following week against the Browns. And then they come off of a bye and look every bit as good as they did against Dallas.
Right.
Are you fully bought into this team? And not as a contender, not as an NFC championship caliber team. Are you fully bought into this team as a Super Bowl winning team?
I mean, my answer is yes, Jesse. And obviously, I know I'm the homer on the of everybody, and everybody's like, "Oh, Sunil just is a fandom and all this kind of stuff," which is true. It's all true. But there are some things that I think this team has that Super Bowl caliber teams have, right? They have a defense that could play lights out. They have an offense that could score, 30 plus points a game at any given moment. They have weapons all over the place. But the things that I think are different about this team is some of the stuff that you always harped on as far as you wish you saw. Accountability, right? And the accountability is coming from the top all the way down, right? Whether it be Shanahan taking accountability for maybe making some wrong plays, maybe making some, wrong moves, taking a guy like Wilkes from the booth, to the sideline, having those kind of difficult conversations to, amp up the team a little bit more. You see it from Brock Purdy, when he's not playing well, he's taking accountability. And it's not just like, a lot of quarterbacks go up there and say, I need to play better and all this kind of stuff. It's different than that. It's not just like because it's the right thing to say. You can tell there's a genuity to what these guys are saying, and you're seeing results from those actions. The second thing is this team either dominates, Jesse, or it's a really close loss, right? And I think that that usually is an indicator of a really, really good team. They haven't been blown out by anybody. I guess you could say maybe the Cincinnati game, at least on the scoreboard, it looked like it, but
it was
really, that game they could have won that game, and then they kind of let go of the rope at the end. But the Cleveland game, like I said, they should have won that game. Jake Moody missed a very makeable 40-yard field goal. That shouldn't have happened, right? Even the game after against Minnesota, they were in that game, and then Brock Purdy got concussed, and then obviously threw the 2 interceptions, and that game was gone. But it was still extremely close. And then obviously the Cincinnati game. So, and then they're blowing out teams, and some of the teams that they're blowing out are really good playoff teams. The Dallas Cowboys, the Jags that were on a 5-game winning streak. So to me, that gives me a lot of confidence in this team that they're capable of competing with anybody, even when they're losing and it doesn't look good. If you think back and you look at the scoreboard, it's like they had every single game they had a chance to win. So to me, that's why I'm fully bought in, because now I see a guy like Kyle Shanahan taking accountability, making those changes. And I think the players at this point, this core group of players, they're tired of just getting close enough. If that makes sense. And you can see there's a little bit more fire. There's a little bit more aggression. These guys really want to put it together and go all the way. And I think they have every opportunity to, with health, obviously, being the main factor, to go out there and get it.
Yeah, I think you can say health for any team. I mean, any team can lose a very good player at any time, and it makes it tough on them. So I don't think that's unique to the 49ers, but it's definitely fair. If they're not healthy, then maybe all bets are off. I'm not fully bought in on this team, but I am close. And I during the regular season, I can become fully bought in. And I'll walk you through that in a second. But the reason I'm not fully bought in just yet is this team looked exhausted after 7 weeks. Absolutely exhausted. And I have to wonder, if they don't get the first round bye, what the toll is on a team that is the 4th oldest team in the league. Can they make it 12 straight weeks to get to a Super Bowl? Can they overcome that grind? And the travel might be a little bit less in the second half of the season, but I can tell you that the teams are tougher. And it is going to be more of a playoff atmosphere week in and week out in a lot of these games. So it's going to be a very, very tough road if they're going to make it happen. However, I say I'm close because I really can be turned completely on this. And here's how. Those two games against Philadelphia and Baltimore, those are the games. If they come out of both of those games with wins, I have zero questions about this team. Zero. Because some of the things that we wonder are, all right, can this defensive line be dominant against a dominant O-line? Well, you beat Philly. It proves that. Can you contain mobile quarterbacks? Well, you beat Philly and you beat Baltimore. Absolutely. Can this team stop the run game? Well, Baltimore is always one of the best running teams. So if you beat them, you did good enough to win the game. Those are two teams that just stylistically should give the 49ers all they can handle. I actually think the 49ers are going to beat Philadelphia. I did pick them to beat them before the season started. I believe that's still the case. But if they beat Philly and Baltimore, I'll be fully bought into this team. I will have zero questions left to be answered because those two teams should give the 49ers a ton of trouble on paper. So that's it for me.
Breaking news. If the 49ers beat two of the best teams in the league, Jesse's going to be fully... what kind of take is that, Jesse?
Breaking news.
That's like, if the 49ers win the Super Bowl, I'm going to be fully bought into
Hey, they still haven't beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs own the 49ers. The Chiefs own the 49ers, okay?
That's true. But to me, I don't know if you could make a take based off of if they beat all the rest of the competition. Like,
based off of all the rest of the competition. If they lose one of those games to Seattle, hell, if they have a letdown game against Arizona, I'm okay with that. I want to see you rise to the top against if you're the elite team, if you are the team that you are supposed to be, if you are the team that is the best in the league, if you're the team that has the most talent and you finally have the quarterback and you have one of the best coaches and all the things we say, those two games are the litmus tests. You can have a letdown against Arizona, and I would be totally okay with it. I really would. Division games can get interesting. I am fine with that. Those two games in particular, they have to win those games for me to be bought in. You can say, hey, it's farce or whatever, but if you are one of those teams, bud, you got to figure out how to beat those teams, and you have to prove it. Otherwise, you're going to get to the playoffs, and you're not going to do it anyways. So those are the teams you have to beat.
Okay, Jesse. That's cool.
So what if they go 0-2 in those games? Are you going to be bought in?
Yeah, it depends.
To Philly and Baltimore.
There's if both of those games end up being last second field goal losses, that's not going to be make or break what I believe in this team or not, right? Like,
oh man,
we've seen the Giants lose. Like, Giants lose to, like, the time they beat the New England Patriots, right? They lost to the Patriots multiple, or in that sometime in that season or whatever, and then they ended up beating them in the thing. Or we've seen the 49ers beat the Rams, blow the Rams out twice, and then the Rams end up winning the Super Bowl that year, beating them in the NFC Championship game. Like, to me, in-season games, wins or losses are important when it comes to standings and maybe confidence and edge-wise and all that mentality-wise. But to me, it's like, how did those games play out? Like, if they were close losses either way or even a close win. So even if the 49ers eke out wins in both of those games, that doesn't necessarily mean they're that much better than those teams either, right? Like, they could easily get beat on any given Sunday when those teams play. So to me, I'm fully bought in because of what this team is capable of, right? Now, obviously they have to execute, but it doesn't matter what they execute in the regular season if they don't execute it when it matters, in an NFC Championship game, like it hasn't happened before. So that's what I'm saying. Jesse's really going out on a limb, like saying, like, oh yeah, if they beat all the competition, then I'm going to be fully bought in. I mean, okay.
I didn't say all the competition. Sense. I said I'm even fine with them splitting with Seattle and losing to Arizona. Those are the two toughest
games that are left. It's Baltimore and Philly.
Fucking win them. If you're that team, then win them. If you are that team, then win those games.
So
you can't
are you
mess
saying
around.
Eagles fans, if the 49ers lose, if the Eagles lose to the 49ers, they should be out on their team?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Okay, so then why would it be the same for us?
Because this is the one team. Stylistically, these are the teams that will give the 49ers problems. And if they go 0-2 in those games, Sidney, if they went 0-2 and you still were like, you know what, I believe the 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl. Now, just because they go 2-0 in those games, doesn't mean they're going to win. I understand what you're saying, but we're talking about a feeling. Are you fully bought in? Meaning, do you have belief in something before it actually happens? Like, yes. Belief in something is believing that something is going to happen as if it already has. Right. I am not going to be there with this team if they can't beat those two teams. I'm sorry. And
so then you just said belief is based off of before it happens, but you're saying you're not going to believe until it happens. So then you don't.
No. Belief. No. Super Bowl, right? Just because you beat the Eagles and you beat Baltimore doesn't mean you've won the Super Bowl. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is those two teams give me belief that they can then again turn around and beat Philly, beat the Chiefs, or whoever they end up playing in the Super Bowl. I would have belief that they can do it, but I have to see something. I can't see them lose to the two toughest teams on their whole schedule and be like, yeah, I believe in these guys. Why would I believe in that team?
Well, I mean, I think that they've beaten teams that have already had mobile quarterbacks, right? And they've been able to do that now.
Okay, who did they beat that had a mobile quarterback?
I mean, Trevor Lawrence is a mobile quarterback. Josh Dobbs is a mobile quarterback. Who else did they play earlier in the season that had? There was another one I can't off the top of my head. I'm not remembering. Now, obviously, Hurts and Lamar are, levels above, but it's not that. I don't think the mobile quarterbacks have been as big of an issue as they have been in previous years. But I get what you're saying. But I'm just saying, like, belief is believing before you see it is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
And
so beating those teams would give me belief that they can win a Super Bowl before I've seen them win a Super Bowl. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. Thank you for putting it into words for me. That's fantastic. It's not just the mobile quarterback. It's the dominant lines. It's dominant defenses. It's dominant running games. There's multiple things about these teams that would make it tough on the 49ers. It really is. Now, again, I am picking them to beat the Eagles. That is my belief before I see it happens, right? Like, I believe that they will beat the Eagles, but if they don't, for whatever reason, I don't have belief that they're going to win the Super Bowl. No, I don't.
Got it.
Brother Bob says, didn't Kyle draft... But hold on, you're on the record saying that if they lose both those games, you're still not going to be swayed, right? We got that?
Depending on how they lose, I said.
If they lose both those games by less than a touchdown.
Yeah, it wouldn't sway me. If it's last second drives, kick a field goal, that's not. And there's a ton of things that could happen that would even if they lose, I still wouldn't lose faith.
What if they blew a lead? What if they had a lead and then blew it? Like a 10-point lead, let's say. Just arbitrary number, 10 points.
Depends on how they lost the lead. you asking me to give definitives on hypotheticals, bro. That don't work.
I just wanted to throw the 10-point lead out there because that's what Kyle does. Brother Bob says, didn't Kyle draft and start Moody, though? That business. I mean,
I guess I just don't understand Brother Bob's point of why he keeps coming at Kyle Shanahan like is not the best coach that we've had since Walsh. Like, okay.
Oh, you think he's better than Seifert? I don't know about that.
Yes.
I don't know about that. Real OBJ says, do you think mobile quarterbacks like Hurts and Lamar is a worry? Yeah, I mean, not just for the 49ers, though. Those guys should worry anybody. I think when you have quarterbacks that can scoot the way that they can, they just bring an element that almost no team can account for it. Lamar Jackson's a great example of this. He's like 19-1 in his career against the NFC. There's a reason for that. That's because teams can't prepare for him on 1 week. It's very hard. Yeah, you don't see many guys like Lamar. Hurts, I think he's very dynamic, definitely. He's not on the Lamar level. Certainly Lamar brings a whole different level of dynamic play with his legs. But Hurts also, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Those mobile quarterbacks like that should worry everybody, especially when they also can throw and have deep balls the way that those guys do. So most certainly. Keith the Unbeaten says, I have a question. Brick's odds on Pro Bowl. Brock's, maybe?
I don't know.
Brock's odds on Pro Bowl?
Oh, yeah.
I have no idea. I said before the season, I said that my pick, if I could take one player on this team to make a Pro Bowl that hadn't prior, it would have been Brock Purdy. And I think the NFC quarterback situation is opened up even more since then. Kirk Cousins going down. I think that he's got a real path to make a Pro Bowl. Hopefully he doesn't have to play in the Pro Bowl, though, because they'll be in a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That would be ideal.
I mean, I think Dak is probably a shoe-in. Hurts is probably a shoe-in. They take Goff. 3. So that would be I think it would be between Purdy and Goff. And it's probably going to be whichever team does the best at that point.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. We'll see. Might be going to the Pro Bowl. It's in Orlando. Tickets are pretty cheap.
Respect, Dave.
Dave says, first time watching you, Sunil. Appreciate it. Then he said, thanks for keeping the evening going, Jesse. That's right. I was over on Grant's. You're welcome, Dave. Thank you for coming over here and tuning in as well. Keith says, can you really own a team you play once every 5 years? Like, I'd consider us owning Dallas and the Rams, but we play them all the time. Yes, the Chiefs have beaten us recently every time we've played them, but you got to put together 3 to 5 in a row. Okay, well, they've put together 3. In the Shanahan era, they've played 3 times, and they've won all 3 games.
Has it 3 or 2?
3. They beat them. That was the Jimmy Garoppolo injury game, 2018. I said in the Shanahan era. Yep. So, and that was before the Chiefs were the Chiefs. We didn't know the Chiefs were going to be what they were either, right? Those were 2 teams in, I think, week 3 of a season where the 49ers had a lot of hopes. Obviously, Jimmy went down, but if I remember correctly, they were getting kind of owned in that game prior to that. Brother Bob says, Sunil loves Kyle and PP loves Purdy. Blind love, no brain involved. I don't know about that. Sunil's pretty smart, but he definitely loves Kyle Shanahan. Brother Bob says, nails. You talking like the Niners versus Dallas or Green Bay in the 80s and 90s? Yeah, basically. I mean, that's kind of what it's like. These are those teams. Here's the other thing. The 49ers win with physicality. So when you play a team that meets your physicality like the Browns and it doesn't go well, that gives me room to pause. So if you play another team like Philly and Baltimore who can match your physicality, if you don't win those games and you're 0-3 against the 3 teams on your schedule that can legitimately match your physicality, you've proven to me that you can't win doing what you're supposed to win at. You're supposed to be the bully, but yet every time you get in a fight with another bully, you're getting rocked. That can't be good. I don't know how you can have confidence in that team. But I think they're going to beat Philly. I don't know about Baltimore. We'll see. Keith says, Dak wasn't mobile against us, but he has been since. Yeah, they just don't scare me. Dallas doesn't scare me at all. Keith says, for me to lose faith, we'd have to us happen what happened to Dallas and Jacksonville. That's fair. I think that's fair. I don't think the 49ers are ever going to get shellacked like that, though. Not with this team. I think they've proven that over time. They're always going to hang in games. Keith says, Kyle is way better than Swifter.
It's probably
Google.
Seifert.
Oh, Seifert. Okay. Google Seifert's Carolina stint. I look at Seifert, but Kyle hasn't been on another team. I don't know. Super Bowl wins matter. They do. And Seifert has 2. So until Kyle gets one, I got to disagree. Keith says Harbaugh is a better question than Seifert. Harbaugh was really good, but that's another guy that doesn't have a ring, doesn't have hardware. So
I would put Harbaugh as the third greatest 49ers coach. Seifert's fourth.
Okay. I mean, Seifert has 2 rings, though.
He only has one as the head coach.
No, I think he has 2. I'm pretty sure.
I thought, what's his name? Didn't Walsh win 4? Seifert has 1. Unless you're giving, and now the 49ers already won 6?
Yeah.
Come on, bro. Walsh has 4, and Seifert has 1.
Seifert won 2 Super Bowls with the San Francisco 49ers before spending 3 seasons with the Panthers. 2-time Super Bowl winning coach, spent time with the Panthers, blah, 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 blah. That last one,
Walsh
I'm pretty
only
sure
has
was
3?
Seifert. Yeah. The last one was on Seifert. The last one of the that 80s run went to him. It was kind of, that one was kind of, like the 94 one solidified it because it was kind of like it was like when it was like when Jimmy Johnson, when Jimmy Johnson handed off to what the hell was his name? Switzer. It was kind of like that. It was like, okay, cool, you won with Walsh's team. Like they were already primed to win, but then going in 94 and winning it was like the solidification of, okay, he can do it, and the team had to rebuild and retool and all those other things. So, yeah.
Wow, my history is off. I always thought Walsh had 4.
No, sir. See, that's why I said Seifert over Shanahan. Okay. Are the 49ers front runners? I'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to ask anymore. Okay. I will describe it. So, a team that when they get ahead can dominate the way that they have, but when they're playing from behind, can't usually pull those wins out. I would say that's a way to define it. That's not the only way to define it. There are other ways to define it. A team that is fully healthy, and as long as we're fully healthy, we're going to win. But the moment we're out on somebody, not so much. Like we got to have everybody. We got to have all of our horses. Otherwise, it ain't getting done. That's another way to define it.
So the second one, I would say they don't need all of their horses, but they need specific horses. I don't think that's necessarily front runner. It's like saying, okay, Kansas City without Kelsey, are they going to be a dominant team, or does that make them front runners that they need Kelsey there? I don't know if that means it. Then I don't think being a front runner is necessarily a negative. I think that the 49ers have a tough time winning without Trent Williams there. You know what I mean? I think they could win with a different quarterback. I think they could win with, Debo being out or Ayuk being out. But if Trent Williams is out, they have a tough time winning. So does that make them a front runner because they need possibly the greatest left tackle of all time? I don't know. If it does, I don't think it's necessarily negative. But let's go with the first definition, that do they need to have a lead to be dominant? I think that because of the style of play that they have, having the lead, it becomes insurmountable odds for the other team to be able to compete because of the way that if the 49ers make a team one-dimensional, their defense is too good to be able to it's just game over for other teams, right? But the second part is, can the 49ers win if they don't have a lead? Now, I know that they necessarily haven't this season, at least, but I think that they've shown glimpses that they still can. So I guess mine is all faith over facts right now, because you're going to come back with actual facts that they haven't done it. But to me, like I said, I think that Brock Purdy had his worst game and still led to a potential game-winning drive that is a very makeable field goal that should have gone through. And then it would have been a game-winning field goal, a game-winning drive that he led after a terrible game, right? That completely changes the narrative. I think, once again, in Minnesota, he got a concussion. Who knows what if he would have made those same throws if he was clear-minded? Who knows if the concussion played a role? I don't know, but that can lead to plausible kind of like, if I'm a lawyer, I'm gonna say there's what's that? There's a reasonable doubt, in that. So personally, one, I don't think front runner is necessarily a negative based off of how you're defining it. But I also think that we can't say that the 49ers can't win from behind. Pause. But they haven't yet. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Okay. I actually don't think they're front runners either. I was just giving you options. The reason I defined it that way is because I think that's what the detractors would say. They would point to those things. They would say, hey, this team, when they have to come from behind, they can't do it. When this team has everything going their way, they're able to win those games. No issue. When this team has everybody healthy, they're good to go. But the moment you start peeling away a little bit of talent or things don't go their way, they kind of fall apart. And I think some of those things can be valid for sure, but I don't think they are front runners. And it kind of goes back to the last topic where this team is always in every game. They're always in every game. And I think a front running team wouldn't be able to stick around even in games that things aren't going right. You look at a game like the Cleveland game was a great example. It seemed like nothing was going right for that team. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't run the ball. They had injuries. Brock Purdy had likely the worst game of his young career. Everything that could go wrong, they were on the road. Everything that could go wrong, weather, that it was wrong. They could have gotten blown out in that scenario. I think bad teams or lesser teams would have gotten blown out in that scenario. I don't think the 49ers are front runners because of that. They're just always there, man. They're tough to beat. They're always going to be in these games. They're supremely talented. They are well coached. So no, I don't think they're front runners.
And you look at even their lot. So one thing about the 49ers, if you look at what they've done, some of their wins turned out to be better wins than what people thought in the moment, right? You look at what Pittsburgh's been able to do. You look at what Dallas has been able to do, even the Jacksonville, what they were. And some of their losses have turned out to be not as bad as they may have thought. Everybody thought the Minnesota loss was terrible. Now you look at Minnesota and they're a playoff team, right? You look at Cleveland, right? Cleveland went off and they beat some pretty good teams even after the 49ers, right? Obviously now with their quarterback going down for the season, they might not be, playoff team like they were, like the trajectory was showing, but to even be competing with those type of teams when they're not playing their best ball, but like I said, not letting go of the rope, still competing all the way to the end. Like I said, those losses aren't as bad as what they look like in that moment because those teams were a lot better than I think people were giving them credit for.
Yeah, I am saying they're not front runners. To me, I think front runner is a negative thing.
I would say the Cowboys are front runners because they only beat up on bad teams.
Thank you. That's a great example. If you're looking at a front runner in the NFL, the Cowboys would be that team. Yes, I completely agree with that. I think everybody can be successful when things around them are going great. What separates is when chaos happens. What do you do in those situations? And I think the 49ers, for the most part, when chaos has happened, even if they haven't won, they've remained in games. They've remained close. They've fought tooth and nail. They've done everything they could to win those games. Not everything is going to be perfect at all times, but they're always there. So I definitely don't look at the 49ers like a front runner. And like I said, to me, it is a negative when you call a team a front runner. And I would say Dallas Cowboys are exactly that team. They are front runners. Keith says Seifert won with Walsh's team like Switzer won. Yep, there we go. I don't fully give Seifert or Switzer. That's fair the first time around. But when you win it again 5 years later or whatever, I mean, that was his doing. That's why I say the one Super Bowl is great. The second Super Bowl, to me, was the validation. Brother Bob says, Sunil, I just Shanistan. I just Shanistan. That's funny. Sunil is just a Shanistan. I don't know our Super Bowl history. Oh, man. Now he's coming for your knowledge on the team.
That's
Damn,
okay.
Brother
See,
Bob.
here's the thing about Brother Bob is like he gets burnt and then he moves the goalposts because he's still like it's like this argument he shut me down on. Let me go after this then. This argument he shut me down on. Let me go after this. I get it, Brother Bob. And look, you keep donating to the cause, so I appreciate you for that, bro.
Dave Barclay says, I have this feeling that Baker goes deep this game. Well, yes, he's definitely going to go. And Mike Evans is a deep ball receiver, so they're going to take their chances for sure. Will they execute? I don't know. And even if they do, will it matter? Probably not. Dave says, question, is or can we cover deep, or do four get home? I still think that's a question mark on this team is the secondary, and can they cover the deep ball?
And do they need to now? Like the thing about it is because they added all these horses to the defensive line, those deep balls aren't going to be as available because the quarterback's not going to have as much time, right? So that's what the 49ers did, right? They couldn't get the shutdown corner that they needed that could really maybe bolster the secondary. So the next best thing, if you want to help your secondary, is get an extremely dominant defensive line. So they went out and they got Chase. I think that we saw, they went from a team that was struggling getting multiple sacks to a team that, got 4 or 5 sacks against a really good team in Jacksonville that also has the ability to throw the ball down deep. And, it didn't really lead to too much for Jacksonville.
Well, he kind of answered his own question with his next super chat, which is, I have another feeling, 97 and 92 racing for Baker. Agree. Yep. I agree completely.
Yeah.
Brother Bob says he agrees with your front runner comment. He said it was a smart comment. So there you go. You guys are friends again, just like that. Mike says Vita Vea is what scares me. Yeah, Vita Vea is very scary, but he's just one player. And the 49ers have found ways to take one very, very good interior defensive player out of the game many, many times before with Aaron Donald. I know they're different. Vita Vea is a whole different beast as far as what he brings, but you can game plan around just Vita Vea. You can.
Are people really worried about Tampa Bay?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that, they're pointing out what is good about Tampa, but I don't think hopefully nobody's worried. I'm like undefeated when I go to 49er games. I'm going to be at the game. They're going to win. Okay. You're going to win. It's fine. We're good. Like, you don't have, if you are worried, you shouldn't be worried. Let's talk about Shanahan. Yeah.
Before we jump into that, I've never seen the 49ers lose live, and I'm going to the Baltimore 49ers game.
Okay. So that's your faith. That's your, before it happens, you believe in it. I got you.
I'm just saying, you said the Eagles they're going to beat the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be at the Baltimore game. I've never seen them lose live. They go 2-0. I guess you believe in them again.
Sunil has never been to a 49er game, is what I just heard. Have you never been to a 49er game? That's crazy. Dang, Sunil. I'm glad you get to go to your first 49er game. I'm just joking. Okay. Speaking of Shanahan, you being the residential Shanahan, as Brother Bob likes to say, Shanahan, is he making the right personnel decisions? And I've actually got quite a few here that I want to talk about, but I want to know what your thoughts are. Do you think he's making the right personnel decisions?
Okay, so Shanahan is a genius. So I'm sure he's doing the right moves. However, there are some moves I think I would rather him be making that he's not making. All right.
Okay.
So
yeah.
One is going to be not enough JP Mason. I think that Mason needs to be getting the ball a lot more. He's been able to, show signs that he's a productive player when he gets the opportunity. And for whatever reason, Shanahan believes in Elijah Mitchell more than Mason, but that to me is a little bit of a question mark. However, I do like that he's not using CMC as much, right? So take that with a grain of salt. The second thing is I think that we can shift some things in the offensive line to be more successful. Namely, and it hurts my heart because I was actually rooting for this guy, McKivitz, but boy, gotta go. So what I would like to see, and we can't do it quite yet because Aaron Banks isn't there, but my ideal offensive line would be obviously Trent at left tackle, Banks at left guard, Brendel at center, Feliciano at right guard, Burford at right tackle.
I like it. I would like to see that as well. I definitely would like to see that for sure.
But in places where you got to give him props, getting Isaiah Oliver off of the field, I think was a big deal. Obviously, people are going to say that was Wilkes. Okay, whatever.
I think that no. That's he's the head coach. I think you can put that under him as well. But I think that's more of a week to week thing. The reason I say that is Ambry Thomas this week. Last week, Christian Kirk was the threat on Jacksonville, and he plays mostly from the slot. So moving Lenore in made a lot of sense. This week, the two receivers you have are Evans and Godwin. They play mostly outside. So if you play Oliver inside, it's not as big of a hit as it could have been last week. But Ambry Thomas on the outside instead of Lenore might be a bad decision. So I actually think that might be a week to week thing, but we'll see. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, and I mean, we still have Luter and Womack that should be healthy enough to be part of that rotation as well. So I think the secondary is looking better. But, I mean, for the most part, I think Shanahan is doing a great job with the personnel. Obviously, a lot of the decisions are really easy to make, but the offensive line, I think, even more than the running backs, is a little bit of a question mark for me.
I've got another one that I want to throw in the mix. And I don't know that it's necessarily the wrong decision, but I'm ready to see more Ronnie Bell and less Juwan Jennings. I'm ready for that transition because this is likely Juwan Jennings' last year here anyways. Ronnie Bell, I believe, was brought in to replace him. I think Ronnie Bell is certainly more dynamic. I think Ronnie Bell is a very willing blocker. He showed that in college, and he showed that in his short time here in the NFL. I just think that he's possibly, even right now, a better player than Juwan Jennings. And I may be wrong about that, but I at least want to see it. So I want to throw that one in there as well. What do you think?
I think it's tough to say any receiver on the 49ers is a better blocker than Juwan Jennings. I think the only person that's close to it is probably Ayuk, but Jennings in as a blocker, like every single game he's getting somebody upset on the opposite team, right? And that's good. I don't know if Ronnie Bell could be that player, but I also think that the 49ers have done well developing these guys to become the guy the next year, right? So I'm fine with it right now. Like, keep Ronnie Bell. He's still getting his action here and there, developing him, and the next year, obviously, he's going to be thrown into a lot of action. So get what you can out of Jennings right now, because obviously, like you said, he might not be here next year.
Yeah, I mean, Jennings definitely has that track record of being a very good blocker, and he has been. The last couple of weeks, he has missed, though. It's shown up quite a bit, actually, on film, where I'm like, wow, you don't normally see that from him. The blocking has gone down a little bit. Like, I don't know that Bell's a better blocker, per se. I just think he's a better overall player. But he is a willing blocker. He is very physical. He is one of those yak guys. He's a 49er. If you watched him in college at all, the moment he was drafted, that's literally all I tweeted. Ronnie Bell is a 49er. And that wasn't because he was drafted by the 49ers. It was because that is the type of player that he is. He's got 49er written all over him. The type of guys that they want, he's exactly that. Can he block? Yes. Can he get open? Yes. But can he run? Can he run after the catch? 100%. He's physical with the ball or without the ball in his hands, and that is exactly what 49er receivers are supposed to be. He meets all the criteria. So I don't know. I think that he might be better. It's at least, here's the way I see it. At least start mixing him in and see, because what I want to see is not necessarily that I'm right or they're right, but that they get it right. And come playoff time, whether it's tweaking the offensive line and moving some things around a little bit, we agree that Feliciano should start at right guard. Maybe that's the only move that they can make. Maybe McKivitz, as bad as he's been, is the best right tackle on this team. Maybe Burford isn't as good at that as what we think. Or maybe Moore can't play right tackle the way he can play left tackle. Or Il Manning or whoever. But if you at least try different things out to make sure that when you get into the playoffs that you have the best players, I'm all for it. And maybe the best player is Jennings. Maybe it's Bell. Maybe it's McKivitz. Maybe it's Burford. Maybe, you know what I mean? So just tweaking some things and trying it out to make sure that when the playoffs come, you've got the best 53 out there. That's what I want to see. Or 46 or whatever it is on game days.
Can I ask you a quick personnel question?
Yeah.
Jason Verrett just got cut from Houston. You taking a flyer on him or no?
I unfortunately, man, he's too many injuries. And if D'Amico, D'Amico loves Verrett. If D'Amico, who could use help in that secondary, is not keeping him, then I think the writing's on the wall. Unfortunately.
Wow.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
You say he's washed.
I think so, man. And not because he's old or whatever, just the injuries. It's just too much, man. Too much. It's unfortunate. He super, super nice guy, too.
Yeah.
He just comes across like the nicest guy in the world. You feel for him. Shiza says, if the Niners face the Eagles again in the NFC Championship, which side of the ball would cause the Niners to lose? The O-line or the corners? Ooh, that's a really, really good question. Oh, my gosh.
O-line. It's O-line. Because if the corners are the issue, it's not really the corners, it's the defensive line. Because they shouldn't be getting enough time for those receivers to, with the type of defensive line that the 49ers have, the corners should never be the issue.
I'm going to say it is the corners, and here's why. Because I like to disagree with you. One, that's number one. But number two, true, yeah. Number two, the Eagles have the best offensive line in football. So if there is any team that I would expect this defensive line to not have their best game against, it would be the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think that would be a fair thing. I mean, the Eagles' offensive line is elite. So the corners are going to have to hold up a little bit more than what they're used to. And you've got two very good receivers over there. A.J. Brown, I think, is arguably a top 5 receiver right now. Good luck. I think the corners are going to get toasted in that scenario if, to your point, the defensive line can't get home. And I would agree, in most games, it's up to the defensive line. That's where all the money is. But that offensive line's elite too, Sunil. I don't know that they can do that the way that they need to at the clip. So I'm going to say the corners.
We shall see.
But maybe they just beat the Eagles and then neither are an issue.
Sure,
Mike says I do. I think they're going to win. Mike says, heard that they're holding Mason for the playoffs. Fresh legs and a downhill runner. Also heard that they are building trade capital for Elijah Mitchell for the offseason. That's could be very possible. Listen, that would not be the worst move in the world. So I don't know how true that is, Mike, but I will say that actually would be a pretty legit strategy. I'm not going to lie. Although,
which makes,
well, hold on though. Although, if you're going to save anybody's legs, wouldn't you want it to be CMC's fresh legs? Don't you want him to? He's the best player on the team. He's the one that needs the fresh legs. So I agree with that, but man, that strategy is a little off because CMC should have the fresh legs, and Mason getting his 5 touches a game to help CMC have fresh legs, I think would be just fine going into the playoffs. But that's just me.
That the fact that it's so strategic makes it not a 49ers game. They don't think that far.
Thinking way too ahead. Yeah.
They're thinking, oh, we can make this trade a 6th round pick instead of a 7th round pick if we use them instead of JP Mason. I don't think that's what the case is.
All right, listen. The goal of this team is to win a Super Bowl. And the only reference that we have in recent memory is the 2019 49ers, which made it to a Super Bowl and eventually lost. However, there are things about this team that I think are better than the 2019 team and important things about this team. We'll just go back and forth so that way we don't take each other's. I'm going to start with one, and I'm going to say this defensive line now, after that trade, is better than the 2019 defensive line.
That was a good ass defensive line, though.
It was, but let me tell you why. We're gonna go all the way through it. So at that time, Bosa was only a rookie. Bosa now is better than he was as a rookie. He just is same name, different player. Bosa was very good as a rookie, but not as good as he is now. That's number one. Number two, Eric Armstead was playing, quite frankly, out of position. He was playing D end on that team. Now, I know that he would kick inside, at times or what have you, but he was starting at D end. Ford was the one coming off the bench, and then they would move Armstead inside when they would go to a pass rush set. So looking at that, and also adding in the fact that Ford was never just fully Ford that season. I mean, he was dealing with injuries the whole season. That defensive line was pedestrian at times when Ford wasn't playing. And when he was playing, they were elite. He was kind of the cherry on top for that defensive line. And he never could put it together. So for those reasons, I'm going to say that the 49ers now, this defensive line is better than it was then. Although DJ Jones, hell of a player.
We're going with where this team's better?
This team is better than the 2019 team, yep.
There's a lot, but let me get the low-hanging fruit out the way.
I know. I left it for you. Oh, okay,
running backs.
I didn't. That was not the low. The low hanging fruit for me is something different. But okay, go ahead.
So I think that 2019 team had better production, possibly, maybe yards per game. But I don't think it was because of the running backs. I think it was because of the offensive line. But running backs, they didn't have anybody in their backfield as good as CMC, the weapon that CMC is. Obviously Mostert came on that year.
Very late though. Very late.
Yeah. And they had the three-headed monster back then. But to me, the talent in just having CMC makes up for everything that 2019 running back stable had. So to me, the running backs were much better this time around than the 2019 team.
Man. Mostert was so electric, though. Man.
Yeah, especially against Green Bay in the playoffs. That was wild.
That was insane, wasn't it? Man, he was incredible. He was incredible. Okay. I'm not going to say my low-hanging fruit on this one. I'm going to see if you pick up on it. But I'm going to say...
but I'm going to leave that to the end.
Okay. I'm going to say the wide receiver core is better right now than it was then.
Overall weapons, you could add Kittle in that too.
Yeah,
Kittle's better.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Kittle was really good then. I don't know about that, but I will say this: Deebo Samuel was very, very good as a rookie, but Deebo Samuel now is more established, more a part of this offense. I also think that Brandon Ayuk is better than Sanders was at that stage of his career. Brandon Ayuk is a hell of a player. Bourne, I think, was good, but I think Jennings or Bell or whoever ends up taking that spot. Presumably Jennings is fine. I would take this receiving core over that 2019 team as well.
Cool. I'm going to go linebackers.
I'm with it.
Obviously, Fred Warner was there.
Greenlaw was there too, but he was a rookie.
Yeah. I mean, but the way that these two have gelled and what they've been able to do, obviously Oren Burks is showing glimpses here and there as well. They still got Flanagan, Powell and all that. Yeah. So, but to me, the elevation of what Fred Warner has turned into, I mean, beginning of the season, we were talking about he could be a potential defensive player of the year, right? And then obviously I think Greenlaw has turned into the best contract that the 49ers have outside of the Brock Purdy contract.
Yeah.
So linebackers, even though similar names, much different game.
I like it. I agree. I mean, the names are basically the same. Now, Quan Alexander was kind of the heartbeat of that defense back then. Remember, he brought. I mean, really, again, I've said it multiple times on this show, but I'll say it again. I love Quan Alexander because I really feel like what he brought to Fred Warner at that time in his career and brought to a rookie Dre Greenlaw, he gave them something that they might not have necessarily gotten on their own. Not from a player standpoint, they both would have been very good otherwise.
Attitude.
But just attitude, exactly. What do you bring in an attitude perspective? Fred Warner he talks about it. He was very in his shell before Quan Alexander came along, and Quan Alexander kind of brought the best out of him. And when Quan left, he realized, wow, that was a great role for this team. Somebody has to fill it. Well, that can be me. So between him and Greenlaw, they've filled that role very nicely. But both of them certainly are better players now than they were then. Absolutely, I agree with that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, yeah.
Because this one, I'm interested in hearing what you think. Ward Tart versus Hufanga Gibson.
I would take Ward and Tart.
So can I play devil's advocate?
Yeah.
Hufanga Gibson is much more disruptive when it comes to turnovers than Ward and Tart.
I agree.
And I think that the way that has impacted wins for the 49ers is much more than I can say Ward and Tart impacted wins. Obviously, Ward and Tart were electric. Their ability to kind of interchange positions was, really, really helpful when it came. But I think that the way that the safeties play now actually impacts wins, I would argue, because of the turnovers more than how Ward and Tart would impact wins.
That was always my biggest issue with Ward and Tart, is that they didn't force a lot of turnovers. Rich Madrid and I went round and round, especially on Tart. Ward, I saw the value. Tart was like, I mean, this guy doesn't force turnovers like ever. This is crazy. So I'm with you on that. Turnovers are amazing, and I'm definitely not going to downplay them. But snap in and snap out, I don't feel comfortable with either of the safeties they have now in a single high position. I just don't. I don't think
coverage-wise, right?
Coverage-wise,
it's what you value. Coverage, obviously, that duo's better. But I would say tackling's probably a wash.
Yeah,
but turnovers
is big. But to me, a turnovers happen. But let's say they force a turnover every 3 games, something like that. I think that'd be about a fair number. Let's say they force a turnover every 3 games. Okay, for that game that they force the turnover, that might be the game changer. But for the other 60 snaps, can they cover the way that they need to? And I would say no, and that's why I would say I would take Tart and Ward. Now, long term, I think Hufanga is going to be really, really good. I think he's going to be the best player out of all of them when it's all said and done. But at this moment, this duo, I don't think can cover the way that team did, or those safeties would. So I would say that I value that just a little bit more. But your point is well taken. It definitely is, because when those guys were on the team, I definitely did. That was the one thing that they were missing, and I talked about it very regularly. They don't force enough turnovers.
There's one position.
There's one. This is the obvious. Yeah. Can we just let's just say it? We'll say it. Let's say the position on the count of 3. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Quarterback.
Kicker.
No, quarterback.
I'm just kidding.
It is kicker though. Yeah, kicker. They're way better. Yeah.
It's obviously quarterback. Brock Purdy is way better than Jimmy G. At least, his ability to make this offense go, I think, is much better than what Jimmy G was able to. Obviously, the kicker position is not better this time around than it was in 2019. But yeah, quarterback for sure.
That was good. That was really funny. I really hate you for saying that. In fact, you know what happened? When you said that, you Jedi mind tricked me so much that I thought we were saying what was better in the 2019 team. Like, well, yeah, obviously the kicker was way better than. Keith says, how much does the run game miss Coach Mac? I don't know. I mean, to Sunil's point, I think the offensive line plays into that big time as well. And I think not mixing it up enough. I don't know.
I think when Trent's there, the run game looks great. When he's not there, it struggles. I don't think it has to do with scheme or anything. I think it has to do with personnel.
Although I don't think the run game this week's going to look that great, just because that's the one thing that the Bucs do really, really well. Keith says that he's taken 2019 Kittle over 2023. Yeah. Kittle was really freaking good then. He's still really good though. But yeah, I think I would take 2019 Kittle. Keith says 2019 coaching versus 2023. 2019 over 2023, which I agree.
Yeah, I think
that wasn't the question though, Keith. What is better, 2023 or 20? Yeah.
No, I think he's saying. So that's interesting because I think Kyle Shanahan is a better coach in 2023 than he was in 2019.
I agree.
But then the other coaches,
the supporting staff is incredible.
Yeah. So I think obviously Saleh, I think, was a better coach than Wilkes is, and significantly better. So maybe that.
And you had Mike McDaniels on that coaching roster as well.
True.
Still,
that's true.
And you had D'Amico on that roster.
Yep.
That coaching roster was stacked, man. Absolutely stacked.
Well, I mean, you got 4 really good coaches that are, either
head coaches now.
All of them are in playoff contention, including the Jets, which is crazy because they don't have a quarterback.
I know, it's crazy. It's absolutely. I hope they don't fire Saleh, man. He deserves better. I hope they don't. Although selfishly, I would like for him to come back.
Yeah, bring him back. Bring him back.
He'll get a second chance because he's too much of a leader. He's too dynamic. He absolutely would get a second chance. I hope somewhere if he does get fired. Keith says, in my opinion, Gibson and Hufanga pick off that Stafford pick. I agree with that. I agree with that. But I don't know. Coverage-wise, there's a lot of things that might have been missed before that game potentially, but I like Gibson and Huff. So it's not as if I would hate you for taking the other side. I just value the other 60 snaps of the game and how important those are. So
obviously offensive line 2019 was better.
Yeah.
Corners, what would you say? Different scheme back then, right? So you have to put Sherm.
I'm gonna say the 2019 corners. I think Sherm is not the reason why. Really, it comes down to that nickel corner position, and K1 was K1 was
Mosley was on
and
that
then
team too,
Mosley was starting to come into his own as the outside corner. Him and Spoon, I think, were kind of the other outside corners, but K1 was an elite nickel corner, man.
That's true.
He was an elite nickel corner. So I would have to give the edge to that one. But I don't think it's that far off. I really don't. I think it's actually relatively close, but K1 is the tiebreaker for me.
I think the outside corner, well, I mean, I don't know how good Sherm is in man. You know what I mean? Like he kind of.
It wasn't his thing. Man. It wasn't his thing. He wasn't Sherman. He wasn't Sherman. Yeah. Still, he was good, but he wasn't Richard Sherman. Then he was definitely on the decline. So,
I think Ward Dante back then, bro.
That's true. Good point. You know what? Actually, slam dunk 2019. That's a very, very good point.
I miss Dante, bro.
Like thinking, golly, that's funny. Hey, Sunil, thank you so much for getting together for the hour plus. Much love to you. Much love to the chat. Hope you guys all have a blessed week. I am not going to be on tomorrow. I've got some things going on in my personal life, so I'm not going to be on tomorrow with Larry and Vish, but make sure you go support them. I think they're going to be over. Actually, they're probably going to dual stream. Check them out on Vish's channel for sure, possibly Larry's channel as well. Other than that, that's it. I'll be at the game this weekend. And until next time, peace.